Hello and welcome to another edition of For the Record. I'm Sean Murphy. My guest today is Krista Quattromani. I said that name right.
Yes, you did.
Representative for SALO, which is Shine a Light on Heroin, a great organization, and it's your first time on the show, so welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Tell us and what SALO, Shine a Light on Heroin, is.
So the Shine a Light on Heroin organization is a local organization for the Westerly Stonington area. It was founded by Mr. Jim Spellman, the former principal of the Westerly High School. He founded the organization because he'd attended a few too many funerals for former students, and he realized that there was a really increasingly tragic problem that was going on in the community that we weren't paying enough attention to. So it started out just as a grassroots effort to raise awareness, and we've really just been taking it step by step and trying to bring awareness to the communities in terms of treatment and in terms of where they can go for help and just the problem in general as well. So a lot of times the first step is just acknowledging that there is a problem, and then we can look forward to treatment.
And sometimes that first step could be the toughest step, right? Acknowledging
Absolutely.
that there is a problem because you have a hard time admitting that you yourself may have a flaw, and sometimes pride gets in the way to try. Even if you do know you have a problem, trying to seek help can be an issue too, right?
Absolutely. Exactly like you said, it is hard enough to, deal with this issue as it is. So we do want to try and raise awareness and get the best opportunities for treatment so that when you do make that step, that the treatment is there for you. The worst thing would be to have made that step and be looking for treatment and not knowing where to turn or not having enough treatment beds available. So that's one of the goals of the organization.
Why heroin? You could, list a bunch of drugs. Why heroin?
Well, it is tough to say exactly. There is a lot of news articles and stories coming out lately about a rise in heroin use, and it is tough to say. Some sources say that heroin use and opiate use has stayed pretty constant over the years, but there are, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that prescription opiates have been cracked down on, and there's prescription monitoring programs in states now where doctors have access to whether or not their patients are receiving opiate medications from other doctors, and so they're in turn making it harder for patients to get opiate prescriptions, and those people in turn are going out and buying heroin on the street.
Probably should back up a little bit just so people can understand where you're coming from here and talk about your background a little bit. You're a nurse, right?
I'm actually a mental health counselor.
Okay, mental health counselor. What is that exactly?
So I had an undergrad degree in psychology, and I got a master's in counseling, and my focus has always been substance abuse. I did an internship at a detox. I've worked in methadone clinics, Suboxone clinics, and I've always had a lot of focus on the substance abuse aspect of things.
So you're the perfect person to be a representative for this organization. How'd you get involved in it?
Actually, Mr. Spellman was my former principal, so
is that right? You're going that far back, huh? Wow.
I reached out to him and asked if there was anything I could do to help the organization because I know a fair amount about treatment, and I figured I could offer that to the organization.
I'm sure he gladly accepted any offer made as far as help that you can give as a professional that kind of went into that field. You mentioned he's a principal at Westerly High, and he was noticing former students. Do you know how far back it goes for a lot of these people? Does it actually start in high school for them as a kid? Maybe once right when they get out of high school, maybe they don't have direction. Where are we talking about as far as the timeline goes here?
So I would say that there is no timeline. A lot of people that are proponents for like the disease model of addiction and proponents for ending stigma and increasing treatment and awareness, they always want to put the idea forth that addiction doesn't discriminate, and it's certainly doesn't across, socioeconomic barriers, race, gender, and age.
You know what? And I will agree with you there because you're talking about the area that he serves, Westerly, Stonington, maybe a little bit more affluent area than maybe like like a New London or a Norwich because of the diverse populations that those bigger cities have in them, right?
Absolutely, and the problem is still just as bad.
Right. Even in so again across all socio. I would say people would automatically might think that income may play into it a little bit, but not necessarily the case,
No.
right? Now, when you said that when you started out with the former the principal for Westerly
He's
High,
the former principal. He's
former principal
retired.
now, how long have you been doing it for?
This organization?
Yeah.
Well, the organization is only a few months old. The real coming out for the organization was in January. We had a community event on the bridge in the Westerly Stonington line.
Right.
It
That's
was
such a
actually-
significant place to do all these things, you know?
And it was actually a really great event. We had emergency vehicles from Stonington and from Westerly on either sides of the bridge, and the ladders from the fire trucks formed an arc over the river. And we had balloons that said Heroin on them, and we literally shined a light on the balloons. And people dropped carnations into the river for people that had been unfortunately lost to the struggle of addiction. And we had the WBLQ radio station there, and it
Our
was
buddy Chris DiPaolo. Yeah.
yes, and that was the big kind of opening for the organization to kind of get the community involved. And so the other thing that the organization does is, I believe the number is close to 150 businesses in the area that are fundraising, and all the proceeds are going to the Westerly Social Services and Stonington Social Services the money is specifically for treatment and people that need increased funds in order to get treatment. So anything from, getting transportation to a detox up at Butler in Providence to, intake fees or, whatever the need is that they're trying to meet.
And how do the businesses go about raising the funds? Do they just have something set up in their stores?
Yeah, it's just an individual thing,
Yeah.
whatever they choose to do.
Do you have the opportunity to go on Chris's station a lot and kind of get the word out
I have,
that way too?
I
Yeah.
have gone on Chris's station for the morning show and talked about treatment and the organization.
Well, since it hasn't been around that long, I'm just curious. Obviously, you did it in January. First of all, everyone was willing to brave the cold
Yes, it
and
was
the
very
snow.
cold.
I mean, if you could pick a day that actually didn't have snow and get out there and do it, and so they were willing to do that. That's great. Hasn't been around that long, but it's probably evolved a little bit from where it started. Where do you hope to see it going as far as adding programs, just having it just grow bigger?
Well, I know I could speak personally, just my goals for the organization are to continue to raise awareness, to potentially speak to, I'm sure we'll get to this, but one of the treatments that is up and coming and needs to be more up and coming for opiate dependence is Vivitrol treatment and naltrexone treatment. And that's actually a treatment that does not require a special license like methadone and Suboxone. So any physician, doctor, physician's assistant can prescribe that. And so one of the next steps would be to maybe approach physicians in the community and talk to them about expanding their practice to include substance abuse patients and provide the Vivitrol.
Well, let's stay on that because I think that's important, the treatment, and that's something that I know that you're very passionate about, and you feel that this is the right direction to go in.
Absolutely.
Because there are other directions that you may not necessarily agree with, as prescriptions that they may be providing people to use, and you might not necessarily think it's a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
You want to talk about that a little bit?
So treatment-wise?
Yeah.
So I've kind of organized my thoughts for the future of SALO, and one of the things that I think that we need to do is I think we need to expand the existing treatment that we already have in town. We are lucky enough to have a methadone clinic in our town. Westerly is a pretty small town, so to have a clinic already is great.
Does that mean that there was a need for it already?
That clinic has actually been there for a very long time, and a lot of people don't know that. So there always has been a need for it. But the number of treatment beds that are, well, beds, it's outpatient, but number of treatment spaces that are available are contingent on the number of counselors and nurses that are working there, the number of dosing windows that they have, and the same thing for Suboxone providers. They have a specific license that limits them to 100 patients per license. So one thing would maybe be to talk to the Suboxone physicians about increasing physicians are actually rallying to the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration to have that license be increased to include more patients, which I'm kind of on the fence with, because if you increase the number of patients that they can see, you also have to make sure that the treatment stays holding the patients to the highest standard.
Right.
So you can't just increase the number of patients that they can treat and
Somebody will fall through the cracks.
well, it's essentially, one of the good things about methadone is that it's a very rigid treatment. You have to be in there every day. You see your counselor weekly to start. You have weekly drug screens. Suboxone, we want to have the same thing. We want to have the staffing to have counseling sessions and drug screening weekly. Unfortunately, if you just hand somebody Suboxone and they're not getting the behavioral modification aspect of treatment, then they can very easily abuse the Suboxone or sell the Suboxone to continue using their opiate of choice.
And that's one of the things that I know that concerns you. It may not necessarily be a wrong way to treat it, but there are certainly hazards along the way, like, for example, the selling of the stuff, and that's something that you're concerned about a little bit.
Yeah, I think, unfortunately, a lot of the barriers to treatment are things that might not necessarily be able to be fixed very quickly, but they're things that with enough grassroots activism and just, speaking to the right people and, not giving up, that eventually could be changed. So one of the other things is the Vivitrol treatment. That's, it's different than methadone and Suboxone because it is not an opiate. So if you know anything about methadone or Suboxone, you know that if you have an addiction to an opiate and you choose to seek treatment, you can go outpatient to a methadone or Suboxone clinic and you can be tapered onto a methadone or Suboxone dose. And it is replacement treatment, it is medication-assisted treatment, and it is still treatment, and it's still much better than being out and continuing to use. However, there are downfalls to the treatment in that you're still on an opiate. A lot of people say, you're replacing one drug for the other.
Right.
My feeling has always been with that, the behaviors of somebody on a methadone clinic and the behaviors of somebody that are actively using are drastically different.
Right.
Somebody that's on methadone and treats it as a prescription can live a completely normal life without engaging in any of the behaviors that they were engaging in when they were addicted.
It's certainly the preferable option.
Absolutely.
If you have to choose between that and just continuing to use, right?
Absolutely.
Good opportunity. I'm going to have you pause there because
Absolutely.
we'll take a break and come back. Why don't you give out the website for people to go and learn a little bit more?
So the website is our Facebook website, and it is facebook.com/Shine a Light on Heroin.
All right. Krista Quattromani. Boy, that's going to be tough to get out. We'll take a short break and come right back. I'm Sean Murphy. This is For the Record. Stay with us. Welcome back to For the Record. I'm Sean Murphy. My guest is Krista Quattromani. She is a representative of SALO, which is Shine a Light on Heroin, which is an issue. Off the air, we were just talking to our director, and he didn't realize that there was actually a heroin problem. And I would imagine that's the case for a lot of people that are just going about their lives and don't even realize problems like this exist because they're, and again, crosses all paths of finance and, where you live and what town you live, but it can happen to anybody, and people aren't aware of it.
Right, and I do think that that's why the problem is gaining some recognition now, is because it is becoming so widespread that people are realizing that it's not somebody else's family or somebody else's set of friends, that it's affecting everyone
You know,
personally.
as a counselor, I mean, I talk to a lot of people about this. Whenever there's a problem in a person's life, whether it's a disease or something like that, it's not only the person that is experiencing it, but also their family members, the people that are
Absolutely.
closest to them, their friends, their family. It affects them too. What do they do? How do they deal with it? You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, so one of the longest standing treatments for any alcohol or drug addiction has been AA and NA, and they do also have Al-Anon and Narcanon meetings for family members.
All acronyms that we've all heard of before,
Right.
you know?
And fortunately, a lot of treatment programs now do have, because exactly like you said, it affects the whole family, it affects everyone that has a relationship with that individual. A lot of treatment programs do have like a family program or counseling where the family members can come in. And there are resources out there for the family members of addicts and alcoholics. They just have to know where to look, and hopefully SALO can be one of those resources.
I think a lot of peers experiencing it, and also just being able to network people that experience the same issues, whether you're going on social media or just people like-minded who have experienced it. Talk to someone who knows what you're going through. I mean, that's sort of like the best source of therapy, I would imagine, right?
Right,
Yeah.
and the basis for AA and NA is one addict or alcoholic helping another. So
I wanted to continue on before we went to the break about treatment methods and the different things like and their providers too. But we'll get into that in a little bit. I just want you to kind of continue on because I kind of felt like I interrupted you in mid-thought there.
that's fine. So I was talking about the Vivitrol, which you did make a good point at the break, which is unfortunately sometimes if people don't have an understanding of opiate addiction, that some of these terms are foreign to them.
Yeah, the drug names themselves
Right.
kind of when you kind of get bogged down in the terminology, so I always try to as best we can kind of in layman's terms just so that they can understand what's going on.
Absolutely. Just to back up to cover those bases, methadone has been around since the 30s, and it's synthetic opiate. It's a replacement therapy. You go to a clinic every day, you get a liquid oral dose of methadone, and it fills the opiate receptors in the head and helps with cravings. Suboxone is very similar, but it also contains, it's a synthetic opiate, and naltrexone, which is what's present in Narcan. So there's a little bit of a blocker in it so that you can't use while you're on the Suboxone. And the Vivitrol is a full opiate antagonist, so it blocks the receptors in the brain so that no opiate can get through and you cannot use while on the Vivitrol. So that's what those three drugs do. Also, like the Vivitrol, there's Narcan, which people have probably seen a little bit in the news. A lot of police forces are carrying Narcan now. It's an opiate overdose reversal.
And you really can't mess it up, right?
Right, so
Yeah.
we're talking about that. There's Good Samaritan laws that if you're applying the medication in good faith, that you can't be.
There's no legal ramifications to
Right,
it because it's harmless. Nothing bad can happen from it.
All it does is reverse the effects of an opiate overdose. And it's actually available. It started with just Walgreens, where it was available in Rhode Island Walgreens. Unfortunately, I don't think it is available in Connecticut Walgreens yet. I can definitely look that up and put it on our
We
page.
literally have a Walgreens right across the parking lot from the studio here. now,
Right.
too, yeah.
So, like all pharmacies, they're everywhere. So it's
Yeah.
good that they're doing
Without a
this.
prescription, right?
Without a prescription, you can go in and get Narcan. So if you're a family member of a loved one that has an opiate addiction and you're worried about them overdosing, you can go to your local Walgreens and get a prescription for Narcan, and they'll teach you how to use it, and you can have that safety net just in case something happens.
How do how insurance providers handle this, especially with all the talk recently of the kind of the changing of healthcare in the country? Are they on board with providing with it? Because you're like sort of
Well, Obama passed a Substance Abuse and Mental Health Parity Act, which is supposed to be that all insurance companies cover mental health and substance abuse issues the exact same way that they would cover physical health issues. Unfortunately, that's still not always the case. I like to think that they're just playing catch up and they haven't, their policies haven't evolved fully yet, because there's all sorts of different rules. I remember when I was working in Massachusetts, there was an insurance policy where the Mass Health wouldn't pay for the same the same treatment in the same 30 days. Now, if you think about it, if you broke your ankle today and you went to the hospital, they would pay for it.
Right.
If you broke your ankle a week from now, maybe somebody would be annoyed that you were back with the same ailment, but they'd still pay for it a second time. This was, if you need detox again in 30 days,
Good point, yeah.
tough, you have to come back in 31 days.
As if everything should have been taken care of the first time,
Right.
Like you could just, one treatment basically, and then
Right.
you're cured.
Right. Insurance companies are like brief interventions, and they hope that, they always want to pay for the
initial.
the least invasive treatment first,
Because
and
it's
then
the least
depending,
expensive, right?
right, and then as the severity increases, they'll pay for the higher level treatments like long-term rehabs. And
Someone who has apparently, from the sound of your voice, had experience with insurance companies, and not always, for the positive, I would imagine, right?
oh yeah, it's part of the
That's part of
the field.
Part of the field. So if somebody's watching the show now, and either they themselves or they know somebody, maybe close to them, who maybe maybe not even addicted, but maybe kind of leaning in that direction, what should they do? What's the first thing they should do?
I would say a great first step is the Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Administration is a website where they have a treatment locator. And it's literally a map of the United States. You click on your state and you can choose the type of treatment you're looking for. Then you enter in your zip code and it'll provide you with detox, methadone, whatever treatment you're looking for in your area. You can, in Westerly, there's the Journey to Hope, Health, and Healing is the methadone clinic. There's Suboxone providers that you can find via that SAMHSA website. There's service centers for AA and NA that you can find online. You can also you can look up in the yellow pages where the local AA branch is, and they'll give you access to meeting booklets and meetings in your area. A great way would be to call your insurance company and see what they provide and see what, if you needed inpatient treatment, what's in your area. I know community-wise, there's two things that I would like to see happen in the hopefully very near future. I know there's a lot of police forces now that are carrying the Narcan, the opiate overdose reversal.
Not all of them, though, right?
Not all of them. Okay. So that's something that I would really like to see is
again, you can't mess it up, right?
Right,
yeah.
Across the state, would be to have all the police forces carry Narcan. And CVS is going to join with Walgreens and provide the same thing, the Narcan available over the counter. It's something like $11, I think, to get the Narcan. Another thing that's really cool that's up and coming in Rhode Island started with the Providence Center and Anchor Recovery, which are treatment centers up in Providence. There's a new license available for people that want to take the training for it, which is a certified peer recovery coach. And their goal is to train people that are in recovery themselves as these certified peer recovery coaches, and then staff places like the ERs of hospitals and treatment centers in their intake departments, so that, you mentioned family members, if they don't know where to turn, kind of just helping somebody that knows the whole process personally, that can take a look at where this person is at and from their experience give them advice as to what they need next and what their next steps could be, help with the family. So that's another goal of SALO, is to potentially get some volunteers to do the training up with Providence Center and Anchor Recovery, and then have some certified peer recovery specialists in Southern Rhode Island.
Now, if somebody's watching the show, maybe, in northwestern Connecticut, and they contact you, you can, even if it's not within your particular sphere of influence, you could probably steer them in the right direction about where to go next so that they can take the next step, whatever it is, right?
Absolutely.
Your website, what's on the website for people to see? We'll give it out one more time, but what's on there for people to see?
So we post a lot of articles in general, just news pieces that we feel capture either the spirit of what we're trying to do or different treatment options or what other organizations are doing, just trying to spread awareness and knowledge because, like we started this show talking about, is that a lot of people don't know anything about it. So even just to know that there are different types of treatment for opiate dependence, that there are, inpatient detoxes, that you can call your insurance company, that you can message us at the SALO webpage and we'll respond and at least give you a place to start. And that there are other organizations that will do the same thing.
Well, we're glad that you came on this show today to be one of your methods for being able to get the word out. Website one more time.
It's on Facebook. You can simply search Shine a Light on Heroin, or it's Facebook /Shine a Light on Heroin.
All right, Krista Quadramani, the representative for SALO, Shine a Light on Heroin. We learned a lot today. Thank you for being on the show.
You're very welcome.
So that is our show for today. You can see this show and many others on our YouTube site. Until next time, I am Sean Murphy. This is For the Record. Take care.